autoclave sterilizes instruments and materials through the use of steam and high temperatures that kill any microorganisms not removed in the sanitization or disinfection process. Some instruments that are used immediately or used in procedures that do not require sterilized instruments can be placed directly on an autoclaving tray without wrapping. For other instruments, single or variety groups must be wrapped before autoclaving. The materials needed for this procedure are wrapping material, which can either be dry wrapping paper, muslin cloth, or sealable bags, the sanitized and disinfected items to be sterilized, sterilization indicators or tape for the interior and exterior of the package, and marker pens. Wrapping materials are always porous. Porous materials allow moisture and heat to penetrate and sterilize the package contents. Begin by placing instruments in the center of the wrapping material. Alternate instruments with any dressing materials that may be required for the procedure. Whenever possible, sterilize items in small packs so that the steam can penetrate more easily. Hinged instruments should be slightly open to allow steam to penetrate and sterilize the hinge area. Position instruments in such a way as to prevent metal-to-metal contact within the pack. Place the inside sterilization indicator tape within the package before folding and/or sealing the package. For cloth or paper packaging, fold up one corner to cover the items. Double back a small fold to use as a pull corner when the pack is unwrapped later. Do the same fold and double back fold for the right side and left side. Fold the last side once toward the center, then tuck this flap under the left and right flap, leaving a small corner sticking out to use as a handle for opening the pack. Place sterilization indicator tape across the last folded edge. Use the marker pen to label the tape with the contents and the date. Sanitization and disinfection remove organic and inorganic debris from instruments before sterilization in the autoclave. Sterilization is the last defense against pathogenic bacteria. The materials you need to perform an autoclave sterilization are the items to be sterilized, distilled water, heat-resistant gloves, a manual or automatic autoclave, the manufacturer's instruction manual, sterile transfer forceps, storage containers or shelf area, and the sterilization log. Begin by washing your hands and assembling materials. Check the level of distilled water in the autoclave reservoir and fill as necessary. The water produces steam for sterilization. Air pockets, created when the autoclave reservoir is empty, can reduce the temperature in the autoclave and prevent total sterilization. Using distilled water prevents mineral corrosion inside the autoclave that might block the air exhaust valves. The autoclave must be loaded correctly to ensure steam penetration and complete sterilization. Steam must reach all surfaces for the required time and at the required temperature to kill all microorganisms. Loading guidelines include the following. Position autoclave trays 1 inch apart. Sterilization pouches can be placed on their sides or flat depending on the model of the autoclave. Lids should be removed from containers before autoclaving. Dressing packs should be arranged in a vertical position to allow the steam to penetrate each layer. Larger packs should be spaced 2 to 4 inches apart, smaller packs 1 to 3 inches apart. Do not allow any of the packs to touch the surface of the autoclave chamber. Once the autoclave has been loaded, close and latch the door according to manufacturer's instructions. Turn on the autoclave. Sterilization time begins when the correct pressure and temperature have been reached. Once the sterilization process is complete, ensure that steam pressure has been manually or automatically released. Next, open the autoclave door slightly to allow the load to air dry. Larger packs with dressings may take 45 to 60 minutes to dry. Wearing heat-resistant gloves, remove the dry packages. Packs are considered contaminated if they are removed while wet or damp. Inspect for holes or tears and confirm that the sterilization indicator has changed color. For single instruments, don disposable gloves and use sterile transfer forceps to move the instruments to a clean container. When storing sterilized items, place the newly sterilized items toward the back of the stock so that the oldest dated materials are used first. Avoid storing in cool areas that may cause condensation, make the materials damp, and require additional wrapping and sterilizing. You may now remove your gloves and wash your hands. Finally, record the date, autoclave load contents, and use of sterilization indicators and quality controls in the sterilization log. Sterile solutions are often required during surgical procedures when wounds must be irrigated. Sterile solutions commonly used during minor surgical procedures may include sterile water, normal saline, or povidone iodine solutions. Bottles of these sterile solutions come in a variety of sizes. The smallest size should be used to meet the requirement for the procedure. This will minimize cost since unused solution must be discarded. The materials needed to perform this procedure are a bottle of sterile solution, a sterile stainless steel bowl or container, a sterile field, and a waste container, such as a second stainless steel bowl. Begin by washing your hands and gathering your supplies. Carefully read the label to verify that you have the correct solution. Check the expiration date on the solution. Don't use outdated solutions. Instead, discard them immediately. When pouring the solution, cover the bottle's label with the palm of your hand to keep the label dry and avoid staining the label. Stained labels are difficult to read. Remove the cap by touching only the outside and place the cap on a flat surface with the open end up. Placing the cap with the open end up prevents contamination of the inside of the cap by an unsterile surface. Pour a small amount of sterile solution into a waste container to clean the lip of the bottle. Rinsing the lip washes away any microorganisms that may be on it. Now pour the required amount of solution into the sterile container. Make sure not to reach over the sterile field as you pour. Don't allow the neck of the bottle to come in contact with the sterile container, and be careful not to splash solution onto the sterile field. Solution spilled on the sterile field may contaminate the field. Replace the cap on the container without contaminating it. Finally, check the label a final time to ensure that you have poured the correct solution. Creating a sterile field involves using no-touch sterile techniques. The materials you'll need to create a sterile field from a sterile pack are a Mayo stand, a sterile pack or packets, sterile transfer forceps, sterile gloves, sterile towels or drapes, and a waste container. Having washed and donned appropriate PPE, begin by adjusting the height of the Mayo stand to a comfortable working position. This will prevent strain on your back. Note the expiration date on the primary sterile surgical pack to determine if it is usable. Position the sterile surgical pack on the Mayo stand so that the top flap will open away from you. Remove the sterilization indicator tape from the pack. Note whether the appropriate color change occurred to indicate sterility, then discard. Pull the top flap of the wrapping away from you and down to hang over the edge of the Mayo stand. pull each of the side flaps away from the packet and over the edges of the stand. Without reaching over the sterile field, bring the last flap toward you and down to hang over the edge. The inside of the pack is now the sterile field. Remember, at all times during the opening and preparation of the sterile field, do not allow any part of your body or clothing to touch the sterile field, as this would result in contamination and the need to prepare a new sterile field. To move items on the sterile field, use sterile transfer forceps. To add items to a sterile field, open other packages without touching the inside or the package or contents, then dump the contents on the sterile field without crossing or touching it. If at any time the sterile field is compromised, the sterile packages must be discarded and a new sterile package must be opened. To open the inner package of another sterile surgical pack during the procedure, a person with clean hands may open the outer package so that a person with sterile gloves may take the inner packet of instruments and supplies.